It is Friday, March 23rd, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And yes, it was very kind of special get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. We had only me and one other person in class, which I found to be very interesting. Usually there's at least the hardcore people on Fridays, but even they were out today, so I gotta wonder exactly what the hell is going on that 4 to 6 of my teammates that typically show up on Friday decided to be a bunch of slackers today and not show up. Don't get it. Oh well, maybe next Friday. So yeah, it's been a very interesting day as far as crypto is concerned. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's been very interesting for Verge. I can leave it at that one. Verge has been hopping around quite a bit the last couple days. Gotta wonder exactly what's been going on that's drawing some additional interest into the crypto world. I don't know. I think that some people get confused about crypto and that they kind of assume that with regard to cryptocurrencies that we're like the only barometer that causes things to happen within crypto, and kind of disregard what's going on with the rest of the world economy out there. And I think there's been a little bit of resumption of doubt as to how concerned we should be about the Federal Reserve and other central banks simply printing money away like nobody's business. And I think that doubt will be resolved relatively soon. You know, it's one of those things it's kind of cyclical. You know, we get a little bit of confidence that they might be able to pull us out of it this time. But then we see some reminders that no, pretty much all they've got in mind is flipping the on and off switch on the printer and telling us that they're doing something really wonderful or dynamic in the world economy that's making things all right. See, I happen to notice though that the old AM/PM index is up. It's up around $3 a gallon of gasoline. I know your wages didn't go up to reflect that increase, so little bit of additional slippage on the value of your paycheck there. But you know, we won't call it inflation because you know that we found out that we can factor all kinds of stuff that people actually need out of the CPI. And we don't have to tell people about increases in food and stuff like that. Because, you know, hey, we don't have to worry about it. I mean, it's not like the people at the top that actually draw up those stats actually have to worry about it. Because they get pay increases. You know, they get cost of living adjustments and shit like that. And we don't. At least the vast majority of us don't. But, you know, those Bentleys got to come from somewhere. And if they can't come out of the additional profits made by your company, they've got to come out of your pocket. You know, somebody's got to get fired. Somebody's got to renegotiate their health care plan, their retirement plan with their employer. But yeah, the money has to come from somewhere, right? And it's not coming from the Federal Reserve at the moment. So, you know, where's it going to come from? Personally, I don't think that putting your company on a blockchain and firing another 10-15% of your workforce is actually going to improve that situation. I think in some aspects it might actually worsen it just a teeny tiny for at least the people that you fire, if not the greater economy as a whole, because you're not only subtracting them from your expense sheet, but you're also subtracting all of the economic activity that they generated from the paychecks that you paid them in the greater economy. That does have an impact. I mean, I know we like to pretend that it doesn't, but this era of misappropriation and misspending is going to end. Because the things that we need sustained aren't being sustained. As a matter of fact, I saw something really, really interesting on my Facebook account where a group of anarchists have gotten together in Portland, Oregon, and they have learned how to fix the road. Now, when people tell you that, when you talk about, what good is government? And they say, but my roads. Well, now in Portland, the city officials have fucked things up so badly and deprioritized fixing the roads so much that anarchists, people devoted against the idea of a group of people being organized to do things for the whole, got together and created a work crew of their own to fix the motherfucking roads gratis. Because it is more important to them to have roads than to satisfy somebody's political jerk-off. I think that says something to us. I really do. I got to look at the cost of things like schools and roads and whatnot to us via taxes. And the fact that despite all of the little taxes and all the little nicks and cuts and stuff that they use to suck more money out of you, despite all of that, they can't afford to fix the fucking roads. Their priorities are so fucked in the head that people being able to get around the city and do business and shit doesn't fucking matter to them. That's a low priority. Those people need to be riding a bus. Those people need to be riding a train. They need to take mass transit. Be subjected to our schedule. Fuck you. I mean, really, anarchists have gotten together and developed a global fucking payment system. A global digital payment system. Voluntary payment system. How badly do you need to fuck up for anarchists to make a global monetary standard to get around your monkey ass? I think you have to fuck up really bad. I really do. You're like writing checks for shit that we don't need and ignoring things that we do need to pay for those things that we don't need. And you've been getting away with it for so fucking long that's like endemic. I keep getting in these arguments with certain people on Facebook where, they look at the costs of this lifestyle to everybody else and it just doesn't register. It just doesn't register. I'm looking at this article and I have a friend who is kind of a communist and I've always admired him because he's intelligent and yet he holds on to these ideals. And despite how many times I run him into a situation that goes against his own values and present him with, even with a live example of it happening, he still adheres to them because he's got faith. And, for that, I definitely got to tip my hat to him because he feels it in his heart. He's not necessarily thinking about it because every time he does think about it, he runs into these walls. But he's definitely, I think his heart's in the right place because he wants to help people. He doesn't want people to suffer. And I think that's a laudable feeling. It's a laudable sensation. What I think is kind of cruel is that some people use that feeling amongst us to enrich themselves at the cost of everybody else, including the people that they were espousing that they wanted to help. But check this out. This is just a little side note to kind of denote what I'm talking about here. Ex-OHSU president gets $76,000 per month via PERS. And PERS is our state employee retirement program. And this is by the Associated Press, authored today, as a matter of fact. Portland, Oregon. An updated pension roll of Oregon public employees shows that the former president of a Portland university receives more than $76,000 each month. The Oregonian Oregon Live reports that the Oregon Public Employees Retirement System will pay more than $913,000 annually to Oregon Health and Science University President Joe Robertson, who retired at the end of last October. Robertson's pension surpasses that of university neurosurgeon John Delashaw, who retired in 2015, and receives annual benefits of nearly $685,000. It also exceeds the pension of former University of Oregon football coach Mike Bellotti, who receives about $559,000 in annual benefits. The updated state database covers nearly 130,000 people receiving pension benefits as of January. The system's average benefit for recent retirees is about $32,000 annually. About 2,000 beneficiaries earn more than $100,000 each year. Yeah, we are one of the poorest states in the nation. We are the first into every economic recession. We are the last out of every economic recession. We are amongst the highest taxed people in the entire country. And yet these assholes can give themselves six-figure retirement wages. The average person here in Oregon does not earn over five figures. As a matter of fact, does not earn over middle five figures. So how is it that these fucking monkeys could be receiving $100,000 a year retired in their retirement? I find that to be just fucking preposterous. You know, I think that in itself is preposterous. But what I find even more preposterous is the gratuitous and lavish nature of their healthcare benefits while they're employed by the state. These people are taken care of. Okay? I mean, taken care of. I had a girlfriend that used to work for Oregon State, and I think she still does, as a matter of fact. But anyway, while I was dating her, they had a fucking massage therapist that would come to work and massage them in their cubicle. Now, I don't know if that's something that was covered by their health care plan or whatever. But they also had a yoga instructor that would show up at work and work them out. I think it was like once or twice a week. It's fucking incredible. Now that one, I'm not sure how they paid for it or whatever. But I mean, the lavish nature of the healthcare was the one that got me, because she had two major elective surgeries while I was dating her. Possibly, it might have even been three. I think she had one done on her knee, one done on her back, and then she'd had a elective surgery for weight loss. And so the one that got me, though, that kind of really brought it home, we were let's see, she was having a back surgery. And she was going to be there overnight, and because they were going to work on her at like 3 a.m. or something like that. So for dinner, she had the option of calling one of the local eateries and having them deliver straight to the hospital. And it would be included in her bill that would be covered by her health insurance. Alright? So, we're looking through the menu book. Okay? It was a book of menus from local restaurants. And there were some of them there that were just mind-blowing. There's one, it was a local Italian restaurant. There was stuff on there, $75, $100 a plate. And I'm thinking to myself, people from her office that get these surgeries, they order from this. And, if you have the option to order from a really nice place like that, and it's not going to be coming onto your credit card, what are you going to do? You're going to order that fucking filbert encrusted lamb. You're going to do it right quick. But and that's kind of what we did. We had very, very, very nice Italian food. Had a nice calzone and all that. It was astronomically expensive, but she didn't pay a dime of it. Went straight onto her health plan. And like I said, that kind of, I think of that as abuse, really. I think of that as abuse of the public's trust. I think of that as abuse of the public budget. Because this is all funded on taxpayer revenue. So, it's kind of obvious why we are in the situation that we are with regard to the world economy. Because this shit's going on all the time. She's just an office peon. I can't even imagine what it's like in state politics, like at the state capitol. I mean, they must have like half-nude eunuchs fanning them with big old feathers and palm fronds and shit. Spraying them, spritzing them with water, and I don't know. It's got to be just insanely lavish by comparison, I would think. I mean, because judging from this article, I looked at some of the wage, the amounts that they were talking about. It just blows me away. 6 figures for sitting around on your ass after having worked for 10, 20 years. I know people that have worked their entire life that'll never receive any retirement, anything even close to that. And to me, that there's just something inherently wrong, because these people actually did work, actually worked for a living, like backbreaking in the sun work, the kind of work that if you did do it for 30 or 40 years, you would deserve one of these kind of retirement plans, But I can guarantee you right now, these people are all fucking office moles. They're in an office, 8 to 10 hours a day. They aren't out there under the sun. Nobody's beating a whip over their snapping a whip over their shoulder. But they're living like fucking royalty. And they act like they deserve it too. That was one thing that it's one of the reasons why I broke up with my girlfriend, was that there was just this entitled aura about it. Like, oh, this is part of my station. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? You couldn't last a day at my job. You couldn't last a day of my casual time. You want to tell me that you deserve this shit? Fuck you. Alright, well, it is with that. I want to go ahead and kick into our first music break. I have not picked anything out, so I'm just kind of scrolling down through the... You know what? Here it is. Beastie Boys. I know I always play it, but this is like the most metal song on the album, Sabotage. And that was Tool with Parabola. I was never very good at the maths. Yeah, it's funny. I was in this little debate with somebody online concerning this whole OHSU president getting $76,000 a month. And he's like all cheering it on, like, oh, it's almost like if everybody contributed, it would be like that. Give me a fucking break, kid. They can only afford to do that kind of shit with the money because it's a small group getting benefited from public funds, from taxes. You know, if that was actually a company that was able to do that, they would be rocking it. They'd be like a Google, you know. Either they're buying it by the gross, and that's how they can afford it, or their profit quotient is so fucking high that they can afford to treat their employees that well. Otherwise, you have to steal the money from somebody, because people being productive actually costs too much money to be making it via legitimate business. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, I got a few tabs open here in the browser that I did want to go through today, and this one I think this is really funny because right now, with regard to cryptocurrencies in general, it seems that the quote-unquote the people that would be regulating cryptocurrencies, they have the ability to observe. They do not have the ability to stop. They can make all kinds of funny noises about what they can do and what they cannot do, or what they won't do. But the fact of the matter is that it is just as easy right now for you to start up a coin and deploy it as it has ever been. There isn't anybody that can stop you. And so when I see articles like this, it makes me think that there are some people out there that want to give you the impression that governments have suddenly developed a magic tool that will be able to stop you. And I think that's unfortunate that anybody would actually take that kind of tense with regard to an article. Nobody has the right to stop you. And more importantly, how would they stop you? We've seen this happen again and again and again. Just because it's not they haven't tried it in the US yet, doesn't mean that it won't have the same results as we've seen everywhere else. You know, you're not just being spared by the fact that the legislators involved in drawing up this paperwork and shit, that they themselves are involved in cryptocurrencies or invested in cryptocurrencies, or they have relatives that are invested in cryptocurrencies, or they have donors who are invested in cryptocurrencies. The trail only goes so far from them before they find that there is in fact a rope around their throat, and that if they do kick that chair out from under them, that yes, they will hang from it too. This is the same quagmire that every legislator, every dictator, every tyrant, every legislator, every fucking one of them comes up against. Every single one of them comes up against this. And they come up against it in multiple ways. But it's like this. If I kick this chair out from under my feet, I will hang. I will hang because either it will impact my personal finances, it will impact the personal finances of my family members, it will impact the financial status of my donors and the companies in my district and my constituents and my state and my country. This is the quagmire of the 21st century. We've seen it play out multiple places, and it is not done playing out. We are going to be playing this game probably for another 2 or 3 years, maybe. Maybe a little bit longer. But I doubt much longer than that. Because I think by then, every single government will have found their tolerance level with regard to cryptocurrencies. They will have found an equilibrium with regard to cryptocurrencies. You know, what their actual spending capabilities are now that so much money has been developed into... has been pushed into the cryptosphere by overtaxation in the legacy markets and other forms of friction that just simply aren't possible within the cryptosphere. But we are going to see this play out for, like I said, another 2, maybe 3 years. I think we're finding out with Bitcoin, though, that you have to maintain a footprint of interest. If there is no footprint of interest, there's not enough people circulating the money in Bitcoin, there's not enough miners to maintain the security of the chain, so on and so forth. You need participants. We need to reshape mining to incentivize more miners to get the fuck into it. Because, like it or not, that's actually good for everybody. The more people are mining, the harder it is to get the coin. The harder it is to get the coin, the more valuable it is, because the more work you have to do to get it. This is how this whole economy thing is supposed to work. And if you start thinking, oh, I'll just hand it off to those guys over there. Via BTC can do all the mining. You know, fucking Bitmain can do all the mining. Nah, you know, go ahead and do that. You start thinking that way, that, oh, I'm just going to build my project on top of their work. They're going to do all the work for me. They're going to be my Chinese slaves. Or my Icelandic slaves, or my Canadian slaves, or whoever takes up the mantle of being the next parking lot for miners. That, you know, they're going to be my slave, and all my stuff is going to work on top of their stuff, and I'm going to make all the money that they should have been making for the work that they're actually doing. That mentality is going to kill a lot of crypto projects. If you do not have people that are interested in your project, if you do not have people that are mining your project, you do not have a project. You have a bunch of software. And I think Bitcoin might actually find that one out itself. I think that we are going to experience that by next Christmas, that we are going to see enough of a lack of favor with Bitcoin where they're simply not moving forward and everybody else is, that by next Christmas, if they have not increased the block size, they're going to be in a world of hurt. Because as is, I'm pretty sure that there's a hard fork plan for Bitcoin Cash where they're planning on going up to 32 megabyte blocks. Now, there's been all this fudding on the throughout the cryptosphere about gigabyte blocks, and this comes from a speech that Craig Wright has given, and I think he's given it more than once, where he's talking about proprietary fucking $20,000 machines that will be processing 1 gigabyte blocks. There's no necessity for a 1 gigabyte block. If you do the math for transactions per second that are actually occurring on the Bitcoin network now, when we go out to 10 minutes, about, I would say, 8,000, 9,000 transactions are actually happening, and there's just that little bit of overhang. Now, if we were to go up to, say, 4 megabyte blocks on the Bitcoin network, that would take care of all of the transactive activity that's happening right now every 10 minutes. And you would end up with a little bit left over every once in a while. Now, if we went up to 8 megabyte blocks, you'd consistently have open space in the blocks at today's load. Because you got to figure it like, I think it's like between 3 and 4, if you go by block weight, it's between 3 and 4 megabytes per block. And so that's about 3,000 or 4,000 transactions, roughly in between there. So now if you calculate that out to 8 megabytes, now we're talking about 24,000 transactions per block. That's more than enough room to encapsulate the current transactive activity on Bitcoin's network. It should be much higher than that, but because Bitcoin dropped the ball, and I do say Bitcoin in general dropped the ball, because miners, you probably could have organized and got a dev to write the version of the code that you wanted to run and deployed it and just ran it yourselves. Quit asking fucking Core for permission. You know what they're going to give you. Now, I wasn't aware of this, but apparently there have been attempts to deploy higher capacity chains that have been spammed to death, basically. And I find that quite unfortunate that there is that kind of activity going on out there. I was unaware of that, and if I had been more aware of it, I would have been calling it out on this show. I don't know. I got to get some hardcore miner guys on the show or something, try and get a voice from them, because it seems like most of the people that are doing the talking these days are devs and the people that latch on to what they're saying. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because then you have the devs kind of directing the narrative of where Bitcoin needs to go, and it's completely, I think, devoid of the perspective of the miners, where they're saying, hey, we're the ones that are doing all this work. This network thing, that's us. Those are our computers. I think more of that voice needs to come out, because honestly, I think there should be far more miners. I think the lack of diversity in voices is one of the things that's causing a lot of the issues that we're experiencing right now, is that far too many interests are going unheard because they are misrepresenting themselves. I've said this before on the show, that if the 13,000 or so non-economic nodes, meaning the non-mining nodes, if they were to become miners, just reset up your fucking hardware. I'm sure you could probably mine using the current hardware that you're using as a non-mining node, and mine with it. If you can't make money on it with Bitcoin, don't be trying to sell your Bitcoin at retail. Put it farther up the fucking sell board. You don't have to be living on it from the moment that you start doing it. I've gone through this several times on this show, that if you were to take some POS fucking hardware, run it for 6 months to a year, by the end of the year, whatever you mined with it, whether we're talking about you mined Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Verge or any other cryptocurrency out there, that you would be able to take the proceeds that you made and roll it over into a new version of some sort of hardware, whether we're talking about an ASICs miner or I don't know, there was the Threadripper processor by AMD and a few others out there. There are a few other means, GPU mining, of course. You could take the proceeds from that year and buy a efficient, for your your electricity costs and all that, an efficient mining setup to where you could actually make money on it. And you just keep rolling it over. And next time, it's only going to take you 6 months. And the next time after that, it's only going to take you 3 months. And the next time after that, and the next time after that. You start planning ahead to where you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling your capacity on the months that you hit it early. That's how you get into the mining game. You don't just start off with a fucking warehouse full of miners. You bust your ass. You monitor your system. You make money on your fucking trades. When you sell your coin, you don't just sell it at retail. You don't just roll it over. You try and make a profit on it when you sell it out there. That's how you do it. That's how you get ahead to it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. But, you know, I do want to read this article really quick. I think it's probably going to be pretty short, and it started me on this whole fucking soliloquy here. But this one's on CoinDesk. U.S. government watchdog. Regulations are hobbling DLT innovation. And this is by Annalise Milano from the picture and the name, No Penis. March 23rd, 2018 at 1800 UTC. The complexity of U.S. financial regulations is holding back distributed ledger technology startups, the U.S. Government Accountability Office says. The GAO's finding in a report published March 22nd is part of a broader analysis of fintech that examines the benefits, risks, and regulations associated with the sector. The office, often referred to as the, quote, congressional watchdog, also offers recommendations in the report to improve regulation of the space. Now let's go ahead and right-click on that one. DLT firms, among others, told the office that the lack of regulatory clarity in the U.S., quote, can result in some firms delaying the launch of innovative products and services or not launching them in the United States at all because they're worried about regulatory interpretation. The 132-page report, which we're probably not going to read the entirety of, the complex U.S. financial regulatory structure can complicate financial firms' ability to identify the laws with which they must comply and clarify the regulatory status of their activities. The GAO also identifies, quote, fragmented state licensing and reporting requirements as often being, quote, prohibitively expensive, yes, for DLT firms. In the discussion of cryptocurrencies, the report identifies as risks the irreversibility of transactions, potential theft, and fraudulent token sales. Dude, it's called business. Get over it. As for DLT, the report states that the technology could cut costs for consumers by reducing the operational expenses associated with payments and shrinking settlement times for currency, derivatives, and securities transactions. It goes on to list cybersecurity and a potential 51% attack as concerns. This is not the first time the GAO has studied fintech in general or blockchain and crypto specifically. In April 2017, the office released a report that explored blockchain technology and outlined contemporaneous industry developments. At the time, it indicated it was unsure if new regulations were needed for blockchain technology and DLT. Likewise, the GAO published a report in January of 2017 that suggested the IRS should take action to inform taxpayers of potential liability from investing their individual retirement accounts, IRAs, in blockchain-based assets. Very concise. I must say, thank you very much, Annalise Milano. 2 names, too. Gotta love it. Anyway, so there you have it. The GAO saying something productive about cryptocurrencies. Not that they actually have any real weight in cryptocurrencies, but the fact that they do have a more positive stance, according to this article at least, is interesting. And no, I do not want to participate in your shit. What GAO found. You know, we might go through the highlights. Yeah, let's go through the highlights. This is the GAO, U.S. Government Accountability Office, and we might go through recommendations. Let's see here, recommendations. Oh yeah, we can definitely do this. Let's do it. Here we go. What the GAO found. Fintech products, including payments, lending, wealth management, and others, generally provide benefits to consumers such as convenience and lower costs. For example, fintech robo-advisors offer low-cost investment advice. I'm trying to find the way to increase the size on this thing. Let's see here. Control plus, because we're fucking blind. Fintech products, including payments, lending, wealth management, and others, generally provide benefits to consumers, such as convenience and lower costs. For example, fintech robo-advisors offer low-cost investment advice provided solely by algorithms instead of humans. Fintech products pose similar risks as traditional products, but the risks may not always be sufficiently addressed by existing laws and regulations. Also, regulators and others noted that fintech activities create data security and privacy concerns that could potentially impact overall financial stability as fintech grows. The extent to which fintech firms are subject to federal oversight of their compliance with applicable laws varies. Securities regulators can oversee fintech investment advisors in the same way as traditional investment advisors. Federal regulators may review some activities of fintech lenders or payment firms as part of overseeing risks arising from these firms' partnerships with banks or credit unions. In other cases, state regulators primarily oversee fintech firms, but federal regulators could take enforcement actions. Regulators have published consumer complaints against fintech firms, but indications of widespread consumer harm appear limited. The U.S. regulatory structure poses challenges to fintech firms. With numerous regulators, fintech firms noted that identifying the applicable laws and how their activities will be regulated can be difficult. Although regulators have issued some guidance, fintech payment and lending firms say complying with fragmented state requirements is costly and time-consuming. Regulators are collaborating in various ways, including engaging in discussions on financial protections for customers that may experience harm when their accounts are aggregated by a fintech firm and unauthorized transactions occur. Market participants disagree over reimbursement for such consumers, as key regulators are reluctant to act prematurely. Given their mandated consumer protection missions, regulators could act collaboratively to better ensure that consumers avoid financial harm and continue to benefit from these services. The GAO has identified leading practices for interagency collaboration, including defining agencies' roles and responsibilities and defining outcomes. Implementing these practices could increase the effectiveness of regulators' efforts to help resolve this conflict. Yeah, whatever. Regulators abroad have taken various approaches to encouraging fintech innovation. These include establishing innovation offices to help fintech firms understand applicable regulations and foster regulatory interactions. Fuck you. Invite them into your house. Why not invite a bunch of fucking vampires in? Some use regulatory sandboxes that allow fintech firms to offer products on a limited scale and provide valuable knowledge about products and risks to both firms and regulators. Regulators abroad also established various mechanisms to coordinate with other agencies on financial innovation. While some U.S. regulators have taken similar steps, others have not due to concerns of favoring certain competitors or perceived lack of authority. That favoring certain competitors, that's a certainty. You're trying to rearrange the fucking deck chairs on the Titanic here. Of course, the people in the position to give a deference to some parties are going to do so. They're going to use those as chips on the table, folks. There's no getting around that. Anyway, continued on. And you do have a reality of lack of authority. Not a perception of a lack of authority. A reality of a lack of authority. Because the distribution of funds has absolutely nothing to do with you. Therefore, you have no control over it. If the user decides they want to circumvent you, they will find a way to circumvent you. It is available. So now it's a question of their willingness to comply with you. And so you got to rethink what your demands actually are, kid. Continuing on. While these constraints may limit regulators' ability to take such steps, considering these approaches could result in better interactions between U.S. regulators and fintech firms and help regulators increase their understanding of fintech products. This would be consistent with the GAO's framework, calling for regulatory systems to be flexible and forward-looking to help regulators adapt to market innovations. Why GAO did this study? Advances in technology and the widespread use of the internet and mobile communication devices have helped fuel the rise of traditional financial services provided by non-traditional technology-enabled providers, often referred to as fintech. GAO was asked to provide information on various aspects of fintech activities. The report addresses fintech payment lending, wealth management, and other products. The GAO assesses 1. Fintech benefits, risks, and protections for users. 2. Regulatory oversight of fintech firms. 3. Regulatory challenges for fintech firms. And 4. The steps taken by domestic and other countries' regulators to encourage financial innovation within their countries. GAO reviewed available data, literature, and agency documents, analyzed relevant laws and regulations, and conducted interviews with over 120 federal and state regulators, market participants and observers, and regulators in 4 countries with active fintech sectors and varying regulatory approaches. What the GAO recommends. The GAO is making numerous recommendations related to improving interagency coordination on fintech, addressing competing concerns on financial account aggregation, and evaluating whether it would be feasible and beneficial to adopt regulatory approaches similar to those undertaken by regulators in jurisdictions outside of the U.S. In written comments on the draft of this report, the agency stated that they concurred with the GAO's recommendations and would take responsive steps. And we will go through the recommendations on the other side of the break. But yeah, I think that the GAO they're kind of onto something with regard to how should I say this, preemptive or not forward-looking enough regulatory frameworks trying to apply those to cryptocurrencies. I can see that, they're at least cautious about that. However, I think they kind of overassume the potential role that government could play in this. I've never been under the illusion that there is a governing agency that is ensuring that my transactions happen, that my trades execute, that I get my money. I've never been under that assumption. I've never been under the assumption that there has been some mommy or daddy that's going to repay me in the event that somebody fucks me out of my money. See, I have always operated under the assumption that the reason why all my trades work and everything operates the way that people say it does, I mean, for the most part, there have been some exceptions, has been because it's been in the interests of the people that I've been doing business with to execute the fucking trades that I ask them to pay me the fucking money that's mine. It's in their best interest to do so, because if they don't, I'm going to get on the horn on every social media outlet I have available to me, which is many, and start shitting in their ear about this party's failure to make good on their agreements with me. That's been my expectation. And if they've actually stolen from me, that there are in fact state and federal authorities that would be able to assist me in resolving it. Because then it would be a matter of actual theft. I've never operated under the assumption that I could get my money back. I've always operated under the assumption, hey man, you know what? They fucked me out of my money. I'm going to let everybody know that they fucked me out of my money. And if at some point or another they did it in such a way that it actually broke current existing state and federal laws, I might actually seek some sort of redress. But I'm not going to ask a federal authority to come into cryptocurrencies and tell me how they're going to run shit, because I already know that they're not going to be able to run shit the way that they say they can. They can make all kinds of statements about, you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that, and that the application of those laws to people is going to be capricious and arbitrary, that they're going to be reaching into a fucking hat basically and subsecting us into some groups that they want to try to address. They'll make a few examples out of us, and then everybody else will supposedly comply. Well, we've already seen where the demand for compliance, where it's been in excess of the capability of the people to actually participate in markets and transact commodities that they want to do, that there is no law that does anything other than control who can do it. But somebody's going to fucking do it. I mean, all we have to look at is our past. Look at Prohibition. The demand that people stop drinking alcohol was written into the fucking Constitution, and people still drank. It only took 3-4 years before they repealed that shit. 2 years. All kinds of bloodshed, people getting shot, people inventing faster and faster cars so they can outrun the cops. The federal government devoting entire segments of its enforcement capability to enforcing this prohibition on alcohol and doing nothing but causing a lot of fucking pain and suffering. Did it stop alcohol? No. Did all of our legislators continue drinking the entire time? Yes. Did the alcohol have any trouble getting to them? No. It was just a little more difficult for the person on the street to get it. But it didn't stop. And they've tried it in the internet too, with regard to downloading copyrighted works. That still goes on today. It's probably at a lower amount now because there are actually market capability to affordable market capabilities to enjoy that media without worrying about getting busted. But it's because the price of compliance has been reduced. It's been reduced so that a greater number of consumers can participate in it. Now, if at any point the tolerance, the availability of media or the cost for the service, any point, those costs can drive that into a change. And I think YouTube and Facebook are going to be facing this really fucking soon, where they've supposedly taken it upon themselves to regulate what media you can receive on their networks. So, things like, supposedly YouTube put a ban on gun-related videos. So what happened? Did they stop gun-related videos from being released? No. Did they stop gun-related videos from being monetized? No. The gun guys went to fucking Pornhub and uploaded their fucking videos to there. That's the market talking to you, YouTube, Google, whoever the fuck owns you now. That's the market saying, fuck you! Fuck you, GI! You're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it. This vision, I keep seeing visions of dystopian future where there's just like this ultimate control over media and all that. No. What worth does it have to you if you can't participate in it? Willingly participate in it. With intent, participate in it. What value does it have to you? Gold doesn't have any value to you if you don't own any of it. If you can't acquire it. Not reasonably, anyway. If it's easier for you to buy an altcoin or an ounce of silver, what are you going to do? If you're trying to maintain the monetary value that you have in your pocket, you're going to put it in the vehicle that is A, most likely to retain its value through an economic shitstorm, and B, use the one that's most readily available to you. Because if it's readily available to you, chances are there's a fucking market with it. And you can use it to exchange for things that you do not currently have access to. But you may actually need in the future. Or now. Utility. It's very, very key. And it's something I think that some people in Bitcoin and the cryptosphere in general have forgotten, is that if we're not participating in it, it loses its utility for us. If it's unavailable to us, it loses its utility to us. So this idea you're going to use your Bitcoin like it's digital gold, going to refill your fucking your Lightning node so you can use your Bitcoin like a fucking refillable Visa card on somebody else's network? No. I don't think so. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And we broke off with a little bit of Tool there. And I got all of this 12-foot Ninja. I've got all of the 12-foot Ninja now. I bought it all. I got two EPs. I got New Dawn and Smoke Bomb, as well as Silent Machine. You know, I don't think we played anything off of Silent Machine yet. No, we did. We played Coming For You. And I think that's the one song that's actually pretty well known from that album. Let's go ahead and go for Silent Machine. I don't even think I've listened to all this album yet, so fuck it. Let's go for it. Silent Machine, off of the album the same name by 12 Foot Ninja, here on Coin Metal. And that was The Devil That You Know by Anthrax. Yeah, sometimes it's easy to just go with the devil you know, but if you can do better, why not try? Anyway, I've got a few. Well, shit. Actually, I've got my browser's like completely polluted right now. I saw this one and I kind of had to laugh. This on the Bitcoin News. Let's see, BitcoinNews.com, or thebitcoinnews.com. Sorry. The race, and before I get too deep into it, I want to make sure that this is a real article and not like referred to from. Yes. See, this appeared on Bitcoin News to begin with, and we'd rather give them the credit because they actually posted it first. Anyway, this was authored approximately 25 minutes ago by Kai Sedgwick, and this is on Bitcoin.com. The race between SegWit and Bitcoin Cash is heating up. Not really. The introduction of SegWit and the launch of Bitcoin Cash were two attempts at solving the Bitcoin scaling problem. Both movements took a different approach, with SegWit seeking to reduce transaction size and Bitcoin Cash seeking to increase the block size. A new report compares the transaction volume on each chain, Bitcoin SegWit, and Bitcoin Cash, since last summer's hard fork, and the numbers are remarkably close. SegWit and Bitcoin Cash show there's more than one way to scale Bitcoin. Blockchain scaling is one part technical and one part ideological. There was a number of reasons that led to the fork of Bitcoin Core in August to form Bitcoin Cash, but at its heart, it came down to increasing transaction capacity. SegWit sought to compress the amount of data in each transaction, thereby freeing up block space. Actually, it was for gutting the transaction, therefore freeing up more block space. Same thing, I guess. While Bitcoin Cash made the size of each block bigger, up to a maximum of 8 megabytes. New data published by BitMEX Research shows how each chain has fared since the Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash went their separate ways. The cumulative transaction volume between Bitcoin Cash and SegWit is remarkably close, showing that each scaling solution has found their levels of support. BitMEX Research explains, since the launch of Bitcoin Cash, 6.1 million SegWit transactions have taken place, only 20.1% more than the cumulative number of Bitcoin Cash transactions. Adjusting for the 1 month head start, Bitcoin Cash had, SegWit has 31.5% more cumulative transaction volume than Bitcoin Cash, larger than 20.1%, but still reasonably close. SegWit had a slow start. SegWit adoption was low from the outset and remained that way for several months, allowing Bitcoin Cash to get a head start. By late December, the total transaction volume of Bitcoin Cash and SegWit was neck and neck at around 4 million transactions apiece. It's it is only the last month when Coinbase belatedly introduced SegWit, pushing its adoption rate over 30% for the first time, that its total transaction volume has been able to compete with Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, because Coinbase is forcing their people to use SegWit. Proponents of each chain have reasons to be content with these figures and of how the future is shaping up for their preferred scaling solution. As BitMEX research notes, although the data suggests SegWit transactions have been adopted slightly faster than Bitcoin Cash, resulting in more transaction volume, Bitcoin Cash advocates could argue that the Bitcoin Cash chain is more about a philosophy of larger capacity in the long term, rather than the speed of the actual increase in transaction volume in the short term. Therefore, Bitcoin Cash supporters can still claim that Bitcoin Cash will eventually have more transaction volume than Bitcoin, since adoption of the coin increases. Bitcoin core block size fall to their smallest in 2 years. Last week, the average block size for Bitcoin Core, BCT, fell to just over 0.5 megabyte, its smallest since January of 2016. Around 22% of the block space is taken up by SegWit transactions, showing the scaling technology is still underutilized. The dramatic reduction in BTC block space owes less to SegWit and more to improved batching coupled with reduced transaction volume. It's no coincidence that the average number of daily BTC transactions is also at its lowest rate in 2 years. The average number of daily Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash transactions for the moment maintains an average ratio of 10 to 1, which also mirrors each asset's respective price. However, total transaction fees for sending Bitcoin in the last 24 hours are 200 times greater than Bitcoin Cash, even if the transaction volume on each chain was equal. In other words, Bitcoin would still cost 20 times more to send. Why do you think Bitcoin transaction volume is so low right now? Gosh, I wonder! Because it's 20 times cheaper to send it via Bitcoin Cash. That's fucking why. Jesus Christ. I swear. And what's even funnier is there's somebody here fudding it. Want to hear a joke? Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, Bitcoin Cash, the joke that's 20 times cheaper than Bitcoin. I have no words. You know what? It's funny because they'll be like talking shit about Bitcoin Cash even after the flippening. And not understanding that the rest of the market is just like left them behind. But that's really sad, you know. We're not even hitting that full block size, that full block that, you know, the Bitcoin SegWit people thought would be just so wonderful. But I think it's really sad, you know, that Bitcoin is suffering for their actions right now. And I think that if Bitcoin Cash does what they say they're going to do and multiplies their block size by 4, that'll be Bitcoin transactions, if they stay on par with Bitcoin Cash transactions, will be 80 times more expensive than Bitcoin Cash. So, there again, you know, what are you going to transact in? The one that's cheaper or more expensive for you to transact in? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've transacted in Verge, because it is pretty damn cheap to transact in Verge. But the the point being that between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, that we are starting to see this exchange. And like I said, it's funny that these people still talk shit about it. It's like, you've made it more expensive than it needs to be in order to transact Bitcoin, and then you want to talk shit about people that have thought up a solution to get around your stupid fucking expensive ass, and you want to talk shit about them. Fuck you. Who are you trying to serve? Are you trying to serve the Bitcoin community? Because if so, you're doing a shit job. They've already thought a way around you because you're doing such a shit job. You know, maybe you should do something else. Take up macrame, something you can manage a little easier than a global payment fucking network. I mean, really, it just saddens me because I've been here this whole time, you know, and we've seen periods like this before, and I imagine that we will get through them. I also imagine in the longer term that we're going to stop hearing about this, let's regulate cryptocurrencies, because people are going to be starting to get a lot more desperate, looking for ways to maintain their monetary value, and they are going to be coming to us. I mean, fuck, Dogecoin will have a better value proposition than fiat currencies, I think, at some point or another. I mean, even being capless, you know, the fact that you can participate in it, the fact that you can acquire it to use it as a medium of exchange makes it that much more valuable than the things that you can't get or that are more expensive for you to get as a medium of exchange. Anyway, but yeah, so there's a couple things that this article leaves out. You know, this race between SegWit and Bitcoin Cash. You know what it leaves out? It leaves out legacy Bitcoin. The non-SegWit transactions that are happening every fucking day. The 70% of all Bitcoin transactions that happen in any given day, they just simply ignore them like they don't they don't exist. You know, 70% of the fucking the commerce that happened out there today that utilized Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, that didn't do it via SegWit or Bitcoin Cash, that shit just didn't even happen. We should just ignore that shit. You know, are you fucking kidding me? If we were going by which one was leading, you know, which chain was leading, in my mind it would still be legacy Bitcoin. Why? Because the vast majority of all the transactions that are happening out there are using legacy Bitcoin addresses. They are using non-SegWit mining. So there you have it. You know what? Why would you ignore that? That's just like, you know, there's an elephant in front of you and you just meandered between its legs and just kind of ignored that the elephant is right there in front of you. It's like you could have touched it, you could have pet it. It was there, but you just completely ignored it. You know, you bent down for a 4-leaf clover or something and walked right over you. You had no idea it happened. It bothers me that there is this kind of mimetic out there, that these are your two options. There aren't any other options. Shit, look on Coindance. There are multiple implementations of Bitcoin running right now. Not just Bitcoin Cash, not just SegWit, not just the normal Bitcoin. And there are a multitude of them. I think there's 8 right now. But the fact that they make believe like it's this binary option, SegWit or Bitcoin Cash, I kind of take offense at that. And I don't even care that they're putting Bitcoin Cash on par with SegWit, that's actually been available for 2 years for adoption, and probably never would have got included into the code base if it weren't for Blockstream. But here we are. We're talking about a three-way race that mysteriously we've just decided to leave one huge segment out of. I bet if you were to take SegWit transactions and Bitcoin Cash transactions and put them together, that legacy Bitcoin transactions would still outnumber them. So yeah, like I said, I kind of take offense at that. There are still plenty of choices out there available to you, despite what everybody else would like to tell you about cryptocurrencies. Regulators do not have any real means of telling you cannot or you should not, or how you should do things while you're doing them here. You start interfacing with legacy finance and with fiat currencies. They do have rules that you must abide by, because if you don't, they can actually track your shit and put you in jail. But where you're transacting between cryptos, I don't really feel like they have any real play there. That'd be like you and Bobby Joe and Jimmy and Dave trade your baseball cards with one another based on the rate of exchange that you see on Google or some shit like that, or some fucking website that values baseball cards. In some people have defined how they should deal with cryptocurrencies in such a way that when you trade with Bobby Joe or Dave or Jimmy, when your baseball cards, that's a taxable event. Now, see, I don't think that really applies with regard to cryptocurrency, because most of us aren't trading from cryptocurrency to US dollars. We're trading from cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency. And so in my mind, if we were to grade the cryptocurrencies the same way that we grade the US dollar, we're talking about two sovereign nations trading their script one for the other at an agreed upon exchange rate. And to me, that doesn't involve the US government. That doesn't involve the IRS at all. To me, that would be like you're trading francs for Chinese yen, or you're trading yen for rubles or petro. But there's no U.S. taxing intermediary between those. Even if somebody can evaluate the transaction on a graph that measures the volumes in U.S. dollars, the transaction itself wasn't between U.S. dollars and Bitcoin, or U.S. dollars and Dogecoin, or U.S. dollars and Verge. It was between Bitcoin and Verge. It was between Litecoin and Dash. So, again, if we were to consider cryptocurrencies like sovereign tools in the same way that we do another nation's fiat currency, it becomes clear that the idea of each trade for cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency being a taxable event under the IRS's definition or the SEC's, it's fucking silly. It's fucking ludicrous. If I'm walking down the street in Italy and I trade a ruble for a euro with somebody I meet on the corner, is that a taxable event because I'm a United States citizen? Am I going to have to report that one to the IRS? It's fucking ludicrous. Fucking craziness. I mean, it'd be like trading apples and oranges. I mean, literally, trading an apple for an orange. And where this would be the same is that if I go to Albertsons, I can find a apple there, and I can find a price for that apple at Albertsons, which is a grocery store, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with the place. I can also find a price for oranges. And so now I have an exchange rate between the two. You know, say it's like a quarter for an apple and 50 cents for an orange. I can now trade 2 apples for an orange based on a US dollar pairing base. Is that a taxable event now? Give me a fucking break. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it back down into some music. And we already played some body count. Damn, I wish I had more body count. Gonna get some more. Gonna do it. It's on the next. It's in the queue of albums I intend to purchase. I haven't been playing too much of the Black Dahlia Murder, and so I feel like they need some airtime. And so here it is, Widowmaker by the Black Dahlia Murder, here on Coin Metal. And that was Meshuggah with Suffer in Truth. Yeah, and I've got a wide variety of articles that I can be covering. But this one I think is kind of important only because it flies in the face of all of the FUD that you hear about cryptocurrencies being used to pay for fucking terrorism and pedophilia and, you know, cocaine and all this other shit, right? But here it is. It's on BitcoinMagazine.com by Aaron Van Werdum, and going by the name, yes, Penis. Quote, real users. Bitcoin donations helped these earthquake survivors recover. This is the second in a series by Aaron Van Werdum focusing on real people who use cryptocurrencies. Read his earlier experiences in Italy. Here, real users in the mountain town. Everyone knows about Bitcoin, and that's another article that we may or may not go into. Actually, you know what? We'll right-click on that, maybe just in case, right? Anyway, continuing on. The straight stone road from the partially crumbled city wall to the scaffolded church in the center of the central Italian town of Norcia is empty. It glimmers a bit from the rain. The weather is unusually wet for this region today. Tourists and day trippers that would usually be strolling around the historic town center on Saturday afternoons like these are nowhere to be seen. Bad luck for Ilaria and Lorenzo, the couple both being in their 30s, both wearing thick coats, scarves, and beanies to keep themselves warm. Set up a small mobile bar near the end of the street, under a white marquee. The inside is decorated with pictures of flowers. It's all part of a local street market festival. There they sell saffron and beer produced with saffron, produced from the thin reddish stalks plucked from the crocus. It's a delicacy, Lorenzo explains, as he hands out taster-sized plastic cups with beer. Pound for pound, among the most expensive products in the world. It's been almost 18 months since the Norcia area was struck with a seismic shock of 6.2 on the Richter scale, an earthquake that many of the old brick homes typical of the Mediterranean countryside could not withstand. Whole street blocks had collapsed, claiming hundreds of casualties. Ilaria and Lorenzo got out safely, but their home was destroyed, and their town, San Pellegrino di Norcia, was abandoned. They now live in a small, prefabricated house on the edge of Norcia. Yet, Ilaria and Lorenzo have been able to keep their saffron business running even after the disaster struck their lives. They rebuilt parts of their organic plantation with financial help from Legambiente, a charity-based NGO dedicated to the earthquake recovery efforts. This financial help did not come in euros. Legambiente had no euros left. Ilaria and Lorenzo were told when they applied for a reimbursement about a year ago, only in Bitcoin. The two had heard of the digital currency a couple of years ago when they were researching local money systems, but they had never owned any themselves. Quote, "We would have preferred euros if it was available," Ilaria admits, sitting down on one of the wooden benches they installed in the marquee. There are no potential customers stopping by, so she has time to talk about her experience. Quote, "But Bitcoin was, of course, better than nothing, so we gladly accepted." The reason Ilaria and Lorenzo received Bitcoin is Guido Berencini Terriccia, the 39-year-old Italian environmental engineer, is the founder of HelperBit, a Rome-based startup that leverages Bitcoin for fundraising campaigns. Bitcoin is particularly well suited to these types of causes. Berencini Terriccia thinks because of the transparency it provides. Through Bitcoin's public blockchain, donors can trace the funds they donate and be sure that they really end up at the Bitcoin addresses of the intended recipients of the money and nowhere else. Quote, HelperBit was only 4 months old when the disaster struck Norcia, Berencini Terriccia recalls, as we are driving in his car from Rome to the disaster-struck town. Quote, "For any natural disaster, it takes a couple of days before media attention catches on to the scope of the event and for donation infrastructure to be set up. As the fundraising campaign starts, the amount of incoming donations reaches a peak within 1 or 2 weeks. It then fizzles out over the next couple of months or years," he explains, as he uses his finger to draw a long-tailed, screwed bell curve through the fogged interior of the windshield in front of him. The number of incoming donations for Norcia was already past its peak when Berencini Terriccia was still looking for an NGO that would take Bitcoin donations through HelperBit. Most of them were skeptical, even though he offered to set up integration for free. After several rejections, Legambiente was the first and only NGO that took Berencini Terriccia, I think that is, up on the offer. Quote, "They were initially skeptical too," Berencini Terriccia said. Quote, "News coverage about Bitcoin had been negative overall, but they ultimately agreed to give it a try. Even though HelperBit was late, it was November before it was all set up, the project was still able to collect more than 10 Bitcoin over about a year's time. The coins became part of Legambiente's budget, set up to reimburse local entrepreneurs on some of the costs they had to make to keep their businesses running. My apologies, sir. There are still Bitcoins in the fund, Berencini Terriccia said. With Bitcoin's price increase over the past year, the euro value of this fund is up quite a bit as well. Quote, "But I'm not sure many people in Norcia know about it. For now, Legambiente still controls what's left." An unexpected windfall. Ilaria and Lorenzo are 2 of the 5 earthquake victims who have taken Bitcoin reimbursements so far. A third, Ilaria and Lorenzo's friend Alicia, is also at the festival. Wearing a green baseball cap representing the local farmer cooperative, Alicia has set up her booth to the left of the Saffron Bar. She sells cheese produced at her local sheep farm, as well as different types of nuts, all displayed on tops of bales of hay. Alicia took a big hit when the earthquake struck. She lost both her home and the stable for her farm. She says that she too would have accepted euros from Legambiente if that had been an option. Quote, I didn't think Bitcoin was real. Yet, having been introduced to the cryptocurrency by Barancini Terriccia, who also personally helped her set up a HelperBit wallet, she decided to keep it. Quote, Guido told me it could go up in price, she explains, maybe to 6,000 euros if all went well. She had received about 5,000 euros worth in June of 2018. She didn't think about her Bitcoin much over the following months, not until her mother saw an item on the news this January. The price had crashed almost 40% within days. Concerned by the message from her mom, Alicia contacted Barancini Terriccia to ask how much of her 5,000 euros worth of Bitcoin was left. It was only when Alicia learned to which level the price had actually, quote, crashed. My 5,000 euros worth of Bitcoin had not decreased in value at all. It had increased to around 20,000 euros. Guido grins while he helps Alicia translate her story from Italian into English. He'd known back in June that the price could go up far more than 20%. He just hadn't wanted to raise her expectations too high. Alicia continues her story, delighted with the news. She decided she wanted to sell most of her coins. She needed a new cheese machine. She signed up for the Rock Trading, a Malta-based exchange operated by Italians. Here, she encountered her first problem. They required a copy of a utility bill to prove my home address, she explains with a sarcastic smile. I don't have a home address anymore. She still lives in emergency housing, best described as a sea container with a door and windows next to a gas station just outside of Norcia. Helped by the town mayor, who provided her with a signed letter for the verification process, Alicia managed to get verified in the end. Quote, but I still didn't sell all of my Bitcoin. I'm still holding on to what I have left, she says. At least until Bitcoin reaches 100,000 euro. Good girl. The case for Bitcoin. Barancini Terriccia is himself a Bitcoin enthusiast. He spent much of the drive to Norcia philosophizing on the consequences of hyper-Bitcoinization and speculating on Satoshi Nakamoto's identity. But like Ilaria, Lorenzo, and Alicia, his decision to use Bitcoin is also practical. The transparency provided by Bitcoin is unique compared to existing payment systems. Even funds donated in fiat currency, which is also possible via HelperBit, are converted into the cryptocurrency, which allows the donors to track their own funds. But that's not all. If they want to, donors can also show to the world that they contributed. HelperBit HelperBit even includes a provably fair ranking for donors. Further, Barancini Terriccia plans to extend the traceability to merchants who serve NGOs in disaster-struck areas, selling tents, sheets, food, and more. Donors would know not only which victims received the funds, but also where and how the funds were spent. Deals with such merchants could ultimately offer a profit opportunity for HelperBit, which is itself a for-profit company. Transparency is not the only Bitcoin feature leveraged by HelperBit. Perhaps most obviously, the cryptocurrency is well suited for fast and cheap international payments, allowing donors to support causes anywhere in the world. To prevent anyone meddling with data, Helperbit also timestamps invoices on Bitcoin's blockchain, like the invoices provided by Ilaria, Lorenzo, and Alicia to claim their reimbursement. In the longer term, Baroncini Terriccia wants to establish a reputation system to let donors send Bitcoin to victims directly, peer-to-peer. Wow, that would be cool. At the same time, Bitcoin has presented its challenges. The biggest problem is key management, Baroncini Terriccia said. It doesn't matter how strongly we emphasize that private keys are crucial. It's hard for people to understand that. Without them, the money is literally gone, in a way that not even Helperbit can recover it. In part to mitigate this risk, Helperbit sets up a multi-signature solution. Legambiente, in this case, holds 3 keys assigned to 3 different people. Helperbit keeps 1. Of this total of 4 keys, 3 keys are required to unlock the funds on Bitcoin's blockchain. If Legambiente loses 1 key, says Baroncini Terriccia, they should contact us immediately to help send the funds to a new address. This has already happened once. Ilaria and Lorenzo, of course, did not choose Bitcoin for such practical reasons at first. It was simply the only option available. But now, as they learn more about the cryptocurrency, the couple is starting to see some benefits as well. Quote, "It is the most transparent currency in the world," Lorenzo says, when asked what he knows about Bitcoin by now. "And politicians don't like it," he jokes. That's a good sign. The two are now considering open a web shop to sell saffron for Bitcoin, most likely through OpenBazaar. Baroncini Terriccia recommended it because the peer-to-peer marketplace includes a built-in dispute resolution solution. OpenBazaar will allow them to sell their saffron internationally, opening them up to a new market of Bitcoin users, they hope. Online, at least, the rain shouldn't have any effect on their sales. Excellent. Excellent article. And, yeah, there you have it. OpenBazaar opening commerce, even of saffron, not just illegal stuff, to the world. And you know, that to me is like the best testament to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, is not that they allow you to buy anything, but they allow anyone to buy anything. You know, that it doesn't just open up drug markets to you, it allows you to help people that were struck by a fucking earthquake to I don't know, 12,000 miles away from you. No matter where, you know, I was thinking about the circumference of the planet. It's roughly, I think, 26,000 miles. So, you know, they got a maximum of 13,000 miles away from you. You know, you could still send money to them within 10 minutes. Especially now with the blocks not being full. That to me is so hilarious that they managed to piss people off enough that the transaction volume has dropped by like 50, maybe 60%, if not a little bit more. And they still have the audacity to compare their transaction volume to Bitcoin Cash, a coin that's only been available since August, despite the fact SegWit has been basically crammed in everybody's ears since, I don't know, at least about 2 years. I want to say about 2 years now, that it's been all over social media, and there's been all kinds of censorship campaigns and all that other shit to try and promote SegWit, and they still only have 30% adoption, and that's with Coinbase using SegWit. I mean, big fucking whoop-de-doo. You know, you got another, 10-15% of users? But that's because you have one of the biggest fiat to crypto exchanges in the world, or at least in the United States, doing their transactions in SegWit format. Now, of course, whether or not the people that are doing the transactions are knowingly doing them in SegWit format, that's a whole different story. I haven't actually checked into that. But I have noticed that Coinbase has been using some weird addressing scheme, at least for Bitcoin Cash. I don't know if they're doing the same thing for regular Bitcoin. And it made things really kind of goofy. But I managed to win my way around it. But anyway, I got this other article that I think we can hit this one before we close out. Where was that last article? I didn't want to get away from it too quickly. I'm trying to find the article we just fucking read. Oh, safe words. That's a whole different story. My apologies. I got kind of lost in all the tabs I've got here, and I've got like 8 million of them. Oh yeah, here it was, the real users. I like that somebody actually is taking the time to talk to people that are actually using cryptocurrencies. And you know, the fact of the matter is that up until relatively recently, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were my only money for about, I want to say about a year or so, where the only fun, actually it's the same now, that all of my income is from crypto. And that's been true for about 2 years now, maybe 3 actually, coming up on it. But anyway, the point being is, I'm not a fucking drug dealer, I'm not a fucking pedophile, I'm not a goddamn, I'm not a criminal of any kind. I'm not selling opium on the Silk Road or Open Bazaar or anything like that. But I'm surviving on cryptocurrencies. So, you know, if I'm representative of the average user, all these people that claim that we're terrorists or some shit like that, it's the silliest fucking thing that you could say to us. It's like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? I don't know any terrorists. But I deal with a lot of people in cryptocurrencies. I haven't met any members of ISIS yet, you know, or at least none that have admitted their affiliation to me. But it's silly to me that we've got people even now that would go so far as to suggest that terrorism financing is something of cryptocurrencies that we represent, that they represent, or terrorism or whatever represents a significant portion of the transactions happening in this space. I think it's just fucking ludicrous, that idea. I mean, because as one of the people in that article had indicated, Bitcoin is one of the most accountable currencies, and I said one of because there are only about 600 cryptocurrencies out there right now, but it's one of the most accountable forms of money that has ever been known. The only way it was ever more accountable is if you were holding the gold in your hand. And even then it wasn't that accountable because you were trading it based on an agreed exchange rate that you didn't know whether that was floating or fixed or coincidental or incidental or malicious or any, you didn't know. And so we've gone from abstractions of value that we don't know the full tale of the tape on to now cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, where we can see the tail of the tape for everything. And I think that some of us have gotten accustomed to being able to cloak our activities from one another financially. And some of us have had business models that were intrinsically tied to this relationship of secrecy and trust that we had with our customers. Well, the world economy has seen multiple instances now within the last decade, no less, or so, of rampant abuse of that trust. In the age of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I do not believe that the world economy will continue to suffer those questions where they do not have to. Will suffer that abuse where they do not have to. And now there are multiple ways for them to avoid doing so. And it is with that I would like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly appreciate the support. You can find me on Twitter or in the Telegram for Verge Currency. And so our last dance for the evening will be Machine Head Block here on Coin Metal. Thanks again for listening, and you all have an excellent weekend.